Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. There's been another wave of Russian air attacks on Ukraine overnight, with at least 14 more people being killed and dozens more injured across the country. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that the airstrikes showed that Russia's approach in the war has not changed, even though the American President Donald Trump claims that Moscow is ready to do a deal. The Russian attacks were unleashed just hours after the United States confirmed that it had limited Ukraine's access to commercial satellite imagery after it paused military and intelligence aid earlier in the week. Ukraine's allies in Europe are still firmly backing Ukraine. But deprived of the flow of American weapons, Kiev is now fighting this war on its own and the gaps that Europe can fill. But the question is this: to what extent can Europe make good the drawing up of American weapons in the defense of Ukraine? And does this now mean that the security objectives of Europe are now different from the security objectives of the United States?
This is what the scene looked like as wave after wave of Russian drones and missiles struck the eastern Ukrainian city of Dobropilya. About 11 people were killed and 30 others were injured in just this one attack. Russia has also been carrying out what it describes as cluster attacks targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure by employing precision-guided munitions and drones. Ukrainian Energy Minister Herman Halashchenko confirmed on the same day that the country has experienced a large-scale missile and drone assault on energy and gas infrastructure across multiple regions. With American weapons drying up, Ukraine's Kursk offensive has suffered some serious reverses. Tens of thousands of Ukrainian troops who smashed through the Russian defenses last summer and took control of a swathe of territory they are nearly encircled by Russian forces. The precarious situation for Ukraine raises the possibility that its forces may be forced into a politically awkward and psychologically difficult retreat back into Ukraine, or risk being captured or killed at a time when Kyiv is under mounting pressure from the United States to agree to a ceasefire with Russia. But some of the mercenaries fighting in the Ukrainian war theater are still trying to keep their spirits up. 36-year-old April Huggett is from Canada. It was not an easy decision for her to leave her 3 children back home in Canada. She says, she isn't just a woman serving on the battlefield, but a soldier. She originally came to Ukraine in December 2024 as a medical instructor, but has since joined the Ukrainian armed forces.
If Russia continues here, it is a signal to all dictators in the world. All these people are watching. China is watching, North Korea is watching, Iran, all these things. These places are watching to see how we will react. Our ability as people to forget if it doesn't directly affect us works in favor of dictators because they are able to do things like mass murder, rape, mass graves, genocide, kidnapping, all of these things.
The Ukraine war has changed the security calculus in Europe. The solidity of the US-led NATO military alliance is under question. Germany has asked if London and Paris can now step up and provide a nuclear umbrella for Europe. And Emmanuel Macron has gone on record to state that France is open to the possibility.
What I proposed was to open a strategic conversation with the member states that were interested in moving forward on extending France's nuclear deterrence to other EU countries. Several of my colleagues came to see me, and so now we will have a phase where our technicians will speak. We will open a strategic and technical dialogue, which will be followed by talks at the level of heads of state and government, to see, by the end of the semester, whether there are new cooperations that can emerge.
Britain has now said it has struck a deal with a defense tech company to allow Ukrainian armed forces to use more advanced attack drones in the Black Sea. The Altius 600 and 700 drones termed loitering munitions will be shipped to Ukraine on a priority. Donald Trump has changed the American policy on the Ukraine war on its head. He now claims it is easier to negotiate with the Russians than to negotiate with Ukraine. But on the battlefield, what will now be put to test is whether Ukraine can fight this war, relying on weapons sent by its European partners alone.
The Syrian security forces clashed with the fighters loyal to the former President Bashar al-Assad in the coastal regions this week. This is the worst flare-up of violence since the rebels ousted Bashar al-Assad in December and formed an Islamist-led transitional government. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights has reported at least 180 deaths. A curfew has been imposed in Latakia and Tartus, where the clashes erupted. But how serious is the insurgency by the forces that are being described as the loyalists of Bashar al-Assad? And does this now mean that the brutal civil war, which one expected had come to an end after the ouster of Bashar al-Assad, has rekindled in a way that no one had expected?
Fighters linked to Syria's ousted leader, Bashar al-Assad, mounted a deadly attack on the Syrian security forces on the 6th of March. Eyewitness footage shows a violent gunfight involving the Assad-linked militants in the Syrian city of Homs. The coastal region in Syria is home to the Alawite minority and has been an Assad stronghold. The attacks began as gunmen, including the former regime fighters, ambushed the Syrian military forces and checkpoints in Latakia and Tartus. The attacks were described as pre-planned and indiscriminate, with the locals comparing the tactics to the past Assad regime. The gunmen seized military zones in Latakia's mountains and the Jable city as part of the attacks.
Last night, several groups stormed the security centers in the city of Latakia, some of the security centers, and they tried to take control of them, but thank God, the attack was absorbed by the General Security Directorate and the participation of the brothers in the Ministry of Defense. Thank God this morning, the groups of the remnants of the overthrown regime were eliminated in the Darfur neighborhood, and they constitute the main danger in the city of Latakia. Security and safety are gradually returning to the city of Latakia, thank God.
On the 6th of March, the Syrian security forces sent military reinforcements to Latakia. But the former regime fighters were deployed across coastal towns, ambushing military forces on highways. Death toll estimates vary, but according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, over 180 people have been killed, including government troops, the ex-regime fighters, and several civilians. Syria's Defense Ministry spokesman, Colonel Hassan Abdul Ghani, warned the Assad loyalists to surrender or face consequences. The coastal region remains a major security concern for interim President Ahmed al-Sharaa. Sharaa also faces resistance in the south, with recent clashes against the Druze forces. However, in a televised address to the nation, Ahmed al-Sharaa insists he will crush the nascent insurgency.
We will continue to pursue the remnants of the fallen regime, those who refused but to continue their oppression and tyranny, those who committed crimes against the people, and those who seek to undermine security and civil peace. We will bring them to a fair court, and those who transgress against unarmed civilians and punish people for the crimes of others will be held severely accountable. Our people on the coasts in the areas of conflict are part of our responsibility, and it is our duty to protect them and save them from the evils of the gangs of the fallen regime.
The Alawite activists claim their community has faced attacks since Assad's fall, especially in rural Homs and Latakia. They fear this latest eruption of violence could be used against them to turn them into scapegoats. The sudden ambush attacks by the loyalists of Bashar al-Assad has shaken Ahmed al-Sharaa's efforts in consolidating control across the Syrian territory. Ahmed al-Sharaa is also struggling to get the US sanctions lifted and is grappling with the wider security challenges, notably in the southwest, where Israel has said it will prevent Damascus from deploying its forces on the Syrian territory of the Golan Heights. For those who expected the brutal Syrian civil war that began in 2011 had ended in December 2024, after the fall of Bashar al-Assad, this has been a rude reality check. As no one can at this moment predict what shape and form this new insurgency by the Assad loyalists can take.
At least 18 people, including 5 soldiers, were killed and 42 others were wounded in a suicide attack at a military installation in northwestern Pakistan on the 4th of March. Reportedly, the suicide bombers drove 2 vehicles packed with explosives into the wall of the compound in Bannu, and other attackers stormed the site before being repelled. According to intelligence officials, at least about 12 militants had attempted to break into the compound, taking advantage of the suicide bombings, 6 of whom were shot dead in the ensuing gunfight. A group affiliated with the Pakistan Taliban called Jaish-e-Fursan, which claimed responsibility for the attack, said that dozens of members of the Pakistani security establishment were killed. A day earlier, in overnight clashes between Pakistan and the Afghan security forces at their main border crossing at Torkham between the two nations, had forced thousands of people to flee from their homes. So what is happening in Pakistan at the moment? Our next report gets you the details.
It was a somber Wednesday in the city of Bannu, located in Pakistan's turbulent northwestern province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa that borders Afghanistan. Thousands of mourners had poured onto its streets to attend the funeral prayers of 18 victims, including at least 6 children killed in twin suicide bombings a day earlier.
Today, the whole of Bannu is so sad. Thousands of people have gathered here and participated in the funeral prayers. Their only demand is, for God's sake, leave us in peace. Do not destroy us with the bombs. We did not give birth to our children so that we could carry their bodies.
At sunset on Tuesday, as people were breaking their day-long fast and some were praying at the local mosque during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, massive twin explosions and an ensuing gunfight jolted them. Reportedly, the twin blasts created 2 4-foot craters, and due to their intensity, at least 8 houses and a mosque in the locality were severely damaged.
We were sitting down to break our fast when suddenly there was a loud explosion, causing the windows in the house to shatter, with glass falling on me. We were injured and heavy gunfire began. Many houses in the area were damaged.
Talking tough, the Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said the terrorists who target innocent civilians during the holy month of Ramadan deserve no mercy. The attack is the latest in a spate of violence that has hit the country in recent days, coming barely days after a suicide bomber killed 6 people at an Islamic religious school in Pakistan, attended by key Taliban leaders in the same province. With more than 1,600 deaths due to terror attacks, last year was the deadliest in a decade for Pakistan. A day prior to the Bannu attack, on the first working day of Ramadan, when food imports from Pakistan usually peak in Afghanistan, overnight clashes were reported between Pakistan and Afghanistan security forces at the Torkham crossing. The Torkham crossing, which is the main transit artery for travelers and goods between Pakistan and landlocked Afghanistan, has been shut since February 21st due to a dispute over the construction of a border area outpost by Afghanistan. The closure has stranded 5,000 trucks filled with essential goods and cost at least $15 million in losses. Reportedly, Afghan border guards had opened fire without warning, targeting government buildings and civilians, which caused widespread panic. An estimated 15,000 local residents have fled to Landi Kotal due to the clashes, in which at least 1 Taliban fighter was killed and both sides reported injuries. With trade between the two countries worth over $1.6 billion last year, it would only be wise to not let it become a casualty of politics.
The Republic of Sudan has been ravaged by war between the Sudanese armed forces and the powerful paramilitary rapid support forces for close to 23 months now. More than 28,000 people have been killed and 12 million people have been forced to flee from their homes, and millions have been pushed to the brink of famine. The fighting has intensified in recent weeks, with the Sudanese armed forces making some considerable gains. Increasingly on the back foot in the conflict, the paramilitary rapid support forces attacked a crowded market at Abu Shouk, a camp on the outskirts of El-Fasher, for roughly about 2 hours on the 4th of March. The Tuesday evening assault on Abu Shouk's market, in which dozens are feared dead, was the second such attack in the last 3 days. Our next report gets you more details.
Home to over 500,000 displaced people, the Abu Shouk camp lies on the outskirts of the city of El-Fasher. The capital of North Darfur, El-Fasher is Sudanese Army's last remaining foothold in the Darfur region, which has been under siege by the powerful rapid support forces for almost a year. A crowded market at the Abu Shouk camp came under heavy shelling first on Sunday, in which at least 6 civilians were killed, and again on Tuesday evening by the RSF. The camp's population is predominantly Muslim, who are observing the holy month of Ramadan. On Tuesday evening, many were out shopping at the bustling market in preparation to break their fast for the day, when the heavy artillery shelling by the RSF started. In the mayhem, which continued for 2 hours, reportedly, more than 80 people were killed or injured. Most of the victims were women, children, and the elderly. Due to severe shortage of life-saving medicines and the shutdown of health centers. Due to insecurity, the situation in the famine-stricken camp is catastrophic. Ever since the all-out war broke out in mid-April 2023, both sides have been accused of committing war crimes. The RSF, however, has not commented on either Sunday or Tuesday's attack. On the day of the attack, the RSF and allied groups signed a transitional constitution in Kenyan capital, Nairobi, that takes them a step closer to setting up a parallel government. Signatories included the powerful and secular-minded SPLM-N, which is in control of vast areas in Sudan's South Kordofan and other smaller groups.
We will establish a national army, a professional army whose mission is to protect Sudan's international borders and national sovereignty, and to protect the democratic system. It will not be a regional or a partisan army.
The new constitution formally establishes a government and maps out what it describes as a federal, secular state, split into 8 regions. Though the RSF and its allies have promised that a new government will be formed in the coming weeks, it remains unclear who will be in it or where it will operate from. Late last month, the United Nations Human Rights Chief, Volker Turk, had struck a note of caution regarding recent moves by the RSF towards establishing governing authority in areas it controls.
Sudan is a powder keg on the verge of a further explosion into chaos and at increasing risk of atrocity crimes and mass deaths from famine. Despite continued mediation efforts, Sudan is at a political stalemate while the bloodshed continues unabated. The danger of escalation has never been higher. Recent moves towards establishing a governing authority in areas under RSF control are likely to further entrench divisions and the risk of continued hostilities.
He had also noted, with alarm, the uninterrupted supply of weapons to the warring parties from outside the country. Accusing United Arab Emirates of supporting paramilitary RSF, Sudan is taking UAE to the International Court of Justice. Khartoum's contention is that United Arab Emirates is complicit in the genocide of the Masalit community in West Darfur through its military, financial, and political backing of the RSF. Terming the case a cynical publicity stunt, the UAE has strongly rejected Khartoum's allegations. The Game of Thrones between the warring generals continues in Africa's 3rd largest country. The big question is, will the power tussle end up splitting the war-ravaged nation?
The Caribbean nation of Haiti has been taken hostage by heavily armed criminal gangs. United Nations estimates that 85% of the Haitian capital Port-au-Prince is now under the control of 200 gangs that operate with impunity. Word on the street, though, is that all of Port-au-Prince is veritably controlled by these criminal gangs. Of late, these criminal gangs have targeted the previously peaceful communities in a bid to gain control of even more territory. The almost complete breakdown of law and order has compelled the Haitian government to form a special task force and to launch a mega operation against the notorious gang leader. Our next report gets you more details on what is happening in Haiti.
Haiti, the most populous Caribbean country, is also one of the poorest in the world. Since the assassination of former President Jovenel Moïse in July 2021, the security situation in the impoverished nation has nosedived and is today comparable to countries at war. The well-funded and broadly allied armed gangs have expanded and cemented their control over much of the capital and surrounding areas. Violent crimes such as kidnapping for ransom, armed robbery and carjackings are disturbingly common. Killings and rape have been used as brutal tactics to sow terror in communities. 47-year-old Jimmy Cherizier, also known as Barbecue, a former elite police officer, is the feared leader of Viv and Sam, a coalition of gangs that control much of the capital, Port-au-Prince. About a week ago, a special task force was created to tackle insecurity, which sprang into action by launching a large-scale operation in a shanty town controlled by the powerful gang leader, Jimmy Cherizier. According to Haitian authorities, several gang members were killed in the operation conducted in the lower Delmas area of the capital. Reportedly, military drones carrying explosives were used in the operation, which came in for praise from the Haitian Prime Minister, Alex Didier Filzame. The formation of the Special Task Force and the subsequent major operation comes on the heels of more than 5,600 deaths recorded last year by the United Nations linked to gang violence across Haiti, a 20% increase compared to 2023. With the US aid cuts hitting particularly hard in the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, half of the impoverished country is now besieged with humanitarian crisis. More than 1 million Haitians, which is about 10% of the population, are now internally displaced, an increase of 48% since last September. Over half of them are children in urgent need of humanitarian assistance. The constant turmoil in Haiti has resulted in the destruction of education in the country.
In just 1 month, January this year, armed groups destroyed 47 schools in Haiti's capital. With 284 schools destroyed in 2024, the relentless attacks on education are accelerating, leaving hundreds of thousands of children without a place to learn.
Out of school, these children are easy prey and are increasingly absorbed into the local armed groups to be part of the nationwide violence.
Last year, in Haiti, child recruitment into armed groups surged by 70%. Right now, we estimate that up to half of all armed group members are children, some as young as 8 years old.
The Haitian police force, needless to add, remains overstretched, understaffed, and under-resourced. The Kenyan-led multinational security support mission in Haiti since 2023 has so far proven ineffective. On 20th of February, the United Nations launched an appeal for more than $900 million to help the gang violence-ravaged country. In order to protect children's right to receive education, the need of the hour is peace and stability in the nation, taken hostage by an estimated 7 major gang coalition. With a prayer in their hearts, an impoverished, exasperated, and increasingly desperate Haitian population awaits.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World at War. And if you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, please feel free to do so on the ID that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.